viewers, my name's Kara. I'm your host for Tuesdays on the Pagan Perspective, and this week we're talking about the ethics of human bone use in witchcraft. Well, the spirits of this place are definitely digging that topic, so in case you hadn't already guessed, I'm at the cemetery. Cemeteries are a place that I love to come hang out and commune with nature and commune with the spirits of people past. So the topic this week is about the ethics of human bone use in witchcraft, and there's an article related to this that is from The Wild Hunt that was about a story in New Orleans, where a witch was collecting bones that had washed up during the rains, collecting their bones and using them for their spellcraft, and posted on Facebook telling people that they do this and that they were willing to send them anywhere around the world to witches who wanted human bones for their spellcraft and whatever if they would pay the shipping. So they described the work that they were doing with them as curse work or any other spell that would require bone, and we're gonna pick a place to sit down and talk about that. And whoa, there was no wind when I pulled in this place, and it's just crazy right now. So I hope that I'm not totally drowned out the sound-wise by this wind. Thank you! Alright, let's go find a place to sit. I need the light! I need the light! We need light to be able to record a video that looks decent. There's kind of a lot of points that I want to address with this. When I first read the article, when we got the topic from Danny, I was just flabbergasted, and I actually had another pagan friend over at my house at the time, and we were talking about it, and just our thoughts on the general use of bone, and then human versus animal bone in witchcraft, but also specifically the taking of it from cemeteries, from resting places. Okay, we're gonna keep trying this. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just in the article, there's a lot of quotes in the Wild Hunt article from both the person who was arrested for this, and some from their friend, and some from David Salisbury, who is involved in the community, especially with the LGBTQ pagan community, so he had some things to say. But anyway, the one thing that Ender, the person who this is referring to, said was in the Facebook post they wrote was that they usually have leftovers from when they go collecting, and they usually go about once a month or when it rains. And that just automatically stands out to me because I'm not a person who uses human bone or bone in general a lot in witchcraft, but honestly, I've never come across like just typical spell work that you would need it for. And I know that this person said curse work and other things that require bone, but like other than people who choose to use them in curses, what else are you even using them for? And how often are you doing these things that you go every month to collect so many bones that you have leftovers? Leftovers is what you say when you have a big dinner and you don't finish it at the restaurant, so you bring it home, or you don't eat it all that night so you have it the next day. That's leftovers. Leftovers should not be referring to taking so many human bones from their resting place that you have extra that you can just give away to people, and that there were 11 and 4 teeth found in your home. Like, that just seems like an excess to me. And even for a moment, let's say that I would use that item in a spell or anything, any item, it's generally a thing that you only take as much from nature as you need. We don't take more than we need. If you have been doing this for a while and you know that you need more, then the next time you go and get more. But like, you know, it's just the whole concept of like, oh, I have so many and I usually have extra, that like, why are you collecting so much and so often? Like, it's just mind-boggling to me. Their friend is quoted in the article as saying, well, this isn't really about them taking bones from a cemetery, it's really about people not liking their identity because they identify as a transgender, genderqueer person of color who is also a witch, and I don't agree with that. I really think that they were charged with possession of human remains and theft from a cemetery, because that's what they did. Like, I only read one other article from the actual, like, from the local news about it. Didn't mention the person's identity at all, except that they're a witch who claimed that they were using this stuff for curse work and other spells. did not go into that they were transgender, that they are a person of color, that didn't go into any of that. So I do not believe that that has anything to do with it. If you do something illegal, you've done something illegal. I don't know what else there is to say about that. David Salisbury then went on to say that in his view, or in their view, I don't know their pronouns either, that human bones are used, you know, similarly to, they were saying crystals have, for example, the energy of the earth in them, so bones have the energy of human ancestry. I could see that symbolically, but I also personally would feel like, more than anything, a person's bones has their personal energy in it. You know, every one of these graves around me that I can see has a name on it, and even if it doesn't have a name on it, there's still a name and a personality and a life attached to those remains. So, regardless, I think I would, you know, of course, we're always able to kind of broaden and say, well, yes, each individual person is part of overall humanity and humanity's ancestry and things like that, but you also have to think and keep in mind that those persons' individual remains also are their personal life. And as Rich was saying in his video, and something that I think is very obvious when talking about this, but may not be to everyone, it comes to mind pretty quickly for some of us, and also David Salisbury was mentioning it, that people get to choose what happens to their remains, and if people want to be buried in a resting place like this, then that's what they wanted for their remains. If people want to be cremated, that's what they wanted. If people choose to donate their bodies to science or art, some way that they know that humans are going to be using their remains and they're not going to be buried or cremated or whatever, they're not going to have a resting place, they're going to have a human use, people get to decide that. And David Salisbury mentions in the article something that I did not know, which is that you can actually purchase human bones from places that have them for that reason, that have been donated to art or science or whatever, and the wind is picking up again. And I did not know that before. So I feel like if you're getting it from that kind of use, or, you know that that person has said it's okay to use my bones, however, I don't think anyone's necessarily thinking of their bones being used in curse work when they say that, but, you know, at least if they know that it was going to a human use, I think that that is more ethical than taking them from somewhere that you know was meant to be a resting place. Whether they've been washed up and are out of the grave or not. I know that a lot of people would say, like, oh, well, I didn't go digging for it, and that's a defense that they used. No, but you know very well that it's human. You know very well that they were laid to rest in that place. That's why you go there. And you know that it's coming from graves, and that's supposed to be a resting place. So that's the thing that more than anything bothers me, is that it's disturbing a resting place. And whether you're talking human or animal, because, you know, I grew up in a family that we had pet cemeteries. Whenever our pets would pass, we buried them in a little pet cemetery. I would be just as upset about someone going and collecting bones from my animal cemetery to use them in their practice, because that's not yours. You don't know them. They have nothing to do with you. It's my pet, it's my relative, it's my whatever, and that's just, you know, that's disrespectful to me. That's the thing, really. In the article, this person said that they felt that they weren't doing anything wrong, which is obvious to me because they posted it on Facebook. And you're not going to post anything on Facebook if you recognize that it's illegal. Like, I don't think that they would have been so public with it and telling people, oh, share this, share this. It would have been a little more quiet. So I do believe that for whatever reason, they don't think they were doing anything wrong, but it is illegal. And there wasn't a huge penalty for taking remains from the cemeteries down there, I guess, and it's something that they dealt with a lot. But since this happened, they have increased the penalties, which I think is good, and, you know, it should be. But this person said in the article, they said that they were doing it because they felt like, why shouldn't they offer what they have to other witches for their use, because they felt like it was sharing something nature had given them. And I don't agree with that. I don't think nature gave that to you. I think nature caused a disruption of a resting place, but you had no right to then know that that's what had happened and make a personal use out of it. I was just talking to a friend of mine, and they were saying, like, if you just find a bone lying on the ground somewhere, you don't know where it came from, it's just out in the ground, it's not in an official resting place, it was probably a natural death or something like that, sure, you could argue that that's ethical and go ahead and do that, and that would be different, I think. And even if you find, like, an animal bone resting on the ground in a cemetery, the cemetery wasn't meant to be that animal's resting place, so you could could argue that it's ethical for you to take it. You could also argue that that animal ended up in hallowed ground and what is an official resting place for some beings for a reason, and choose to leave it because they are here. You know, or, I mean, everywhere is sacred. It doesn't have to be hallowed ground. Even when you're out in the woods, that's someone's final resting place, and I think that that really deserves some respect. What Rich said about wanting to have a skull for, like, permanent use, multiple use, and just kind of have it forever. And I feel like from this language that, oh, I have leftovers and I go once a month and things like that, I feel like maybe they're using them as kind of like a one-time use, and then how do you dispose of them? I know nothing about this because I don't use it for that, and I don't see a reason to. If I were doing ancestor work, like David Salisbury said in the article, he has a resin skull that works just fine. Rich has his sort of like polymer plastic skull, whatever, that he has. There's plenty of stuff like that. You can get stone carvings of things. There are beautiful crystal carvings that are shaped into skulls if you just want to have that kind of bone symbolism. I have a rock that I found, or a stone of some kind. It's not really rock. I know that didn't make sense to you, but anyway, it's a thing, and it is remarkably close to the shape of a bird skull. That at the time I was working with that energy, and I thought that is something that nature gave me because I found that on my walk. It's a rock that just happens to be perfectly shaped like this skull, and that is a beautiful substitute for me. And I know some people have skulls of birds that they've purchased or they wear in jewelry or whatever, and that's a choice that you can make, but I feel like there are just so many good substitutes for things. And even with ancestor work, a very common one is to use photographs of your ancestors, because again, for me, it's just different. Like, how would I know if, thank you, how would I know if whatever it is that I'm using, that bone or whatever, is from, it's not from my ancestors necessarily. And yes, I know we're all related somewhere down the line, but I would much rather have pictures and names of my actual ancestors if I know them, or an heirloom from my family or something like that, rather than just a random person's bone and try to use that to connect with my ancestry. You know, it just doesn't seem to add up. Human bones carry individual energy, not just the general ancestral. I already said that. It's that person's energy, and it's not yours to take. If they didn't give permission for their body and their bones to be used that way, it's not yours to take. Human or animal, it doesn't really matter to me. If it's in a resting place, it should remain in its resting place, and I feel like it's disrespectful to take them from that place. Yeah, so overall answer, I feel like if there's a way that it can be done ethically, such as getting them from a place where someone has given their permission for their body to be used in that way, I feel like that's pretty ethical. They have a right to determine what they want done with their body, so if somebody wanted that to be done with their body and you choose to use it that way, sure, to make sure you have proof and permission and whatever. Leave offerings, and just in general, with anything that you're taking from nature, only take what you need and give thanks for it. And yeah, I know that was a lot of rambling, and there's a lot in there, and there's a lot of opinions about this, and because I'm coming from a certain perspective, other people will have a very different view. That's the good thing about this channel and what we can all do with sharing our views. But for me, it all just comes down to respect, and some people might think that having that bone in your hand is a better form of connection. I personally think that coming to visit them in their resting place is a beautiful thing. Looking at pictures of people or having representations of things. And yeah, I don't know. We're coming up on this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere where a lot of ancestor veneration is happening, a lot of honoring the dead, a lot of honoring the cycle of life. And I just don't see how taking things that you know belong to someone, to a person, and using them for your will, I don't see how that is honoring them or respecting them. And I could go on and on about stuff like that involving animal bones too, and especially, you know, how do I feel about it as a vegan, and then as a witch, and then as the overlap, and da-da-da-da. I won't go into all of that, because I could talk forever. So I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna walk around and visit and leave my offerings and go home and edit this and start it uploading before I have to go to rehearsal. So thank you all for watching, thank you for listening, thank you Danny for the topic, and I think it's a very interesting conversation, and I was really excited about this week's video. So I'll see you next time. Until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye.